There's a strong chance you're not that far off from winning in business and at the game of life. It just takes one idea, but you gotta have unwavering belief and burning desire. If you can couple that with a lockdown strategy that's fueled by heart, hustle, and muscle, you got a shot at winning. There's one thing that all champions have in common. They get shit done. So welcome to the Get Shit Done experience. All right, well, you are back in studio with us. This is the Get Shit Done experience. We also call it the GSDX podcast. Check us out at www.gsdxpodcast.com. And by the way, if you would be so kind as to go to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcast, and maybe, I don't know, download, maybe subscribe. How about a rating and a review? It would be absolutely amazing if you would do that. It would certainly help our show continue to progress, and that will help us to reach more people, which will allow us to attract even more amazing guests and hopefully inspire you with great knowledge and some entertainment, right? It's all about entertaining and educating. Today, we are going to do just that, and I've got the one and only Lauren Klaus on. As I mentioned in episode 6, she is effervescent. She's also extremely talented. She's also ultra competitive. She's a sales manager for TTSG. TTSG is a managed print service provider, Document Solutions, a distributor and service for Kyocera, Zebra Technologies, and Hewlett-Packard, right? Mainly Kyocera, right? That's kind of our jive. That's our jam.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be a little selfish today in this episode because obviously TTSG, GSD Technologies, and 2020 Design sponsor the Get Shit Done Experience podcast, and we both represent the brand. So you know what? Guess what? We get to do this. It's our show, so we can talk about it.
Whatever we want.
We can talk about whatever we want. So Lauren, welcome to the show. It's been fantastic interacting with you. I think I've been here 6 months, but you, my friend, have been here now 8 years, 9 years?
Actually, 7.
7,
Lucky
approaching
number
8.
7.
Right on. And as sales manager for TTSG, you are leading a team of folks, but you are also out there in the trenches, interacting with our partners, making certain that our partners are getting the latest and greatest, and you are in communication with our partners as they reach close to the end of their agreement to talk about, hey, let's re-up the agreement. Can you describe managed print services in your own words? Because I think that there's a lot of different ways to explain it, but I'd love to hear from the expert. How would you explain managed print services?
Outside of majestic and magical.
Okay. There's not going to be unicorns, is there?
I mean, maybe.
All right, cool.
I did one time tell someone that if they rubbed the copier, a genie would come out and grant them 3 wishes.
Oh my gosh.
On another note, managed print services is basically you have your office copiers, printers, multifunctional printers. Most offices have them still. Many offices are in some sort of state of consolidating. They're trying to print less, or they're looking for whatever, different solutions tied to printing, scanning, how documents are stored and retrieved in an organization.
Yeah.
We come into play because we're like, okay, what are you doing now? How is it being managed? How much is it costing you? Is that solution scalable? Is it the best solution for you today, but not just today? Is it the best solution for you over the next 5 years? Because I want to say 90% of the contracts are 5-year contracts. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at providing service for all these devices. So as they need supplies, we will provide the supplies. If they break, we come out and fix them. We do account reviews where we evaluate their current service. And we make adjustments if needed. And then, again, towards the end of these contracts, we're looking at rewriting these deals to make sense for the future growth, future changes, whatever it is. So that's really what it is in a nutshell. And then there's all these little weird nuances that you would never think about in terms of copiers. I could tell you, being a bartender for 8 years full-time and going into copier sales,
natural transition.
Obviously, right? A natural transition. I had always dreamt of being a copier person. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the copiers. It's what the copiers do for an organization. Mm-hmm. It's the cause and effect. Hardware, easy. It's the software solutions. It's the business applications.
Yeah.
It's more in depth than you would think, which makes it stimulating. I would say I never get bored because there's always technology, technology changes. And then obviously with TTSG, Total Technology Solutions, we offer...
It's kind of in the name.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything technology.
There's always savings, but it's about way more than savings alone. Total Technology Solutions Group redefines managed print services. Excellence is the minimum standard. TTSG is a true managed print service provider, deeply understanding your technology and business goals. Your business is unique. Our solutions are tailored to your current and future business goals. Our customer-first approach empowers and delights. TTSG can ensure your technology environment will scale as your business does. So as you navigate business and constant change, partner with TTSG for premium advisement and seamless implementation of your technology goals. We set the bar high. Your people deserve it. Peace of mind. Powerful innovation. TTSG.com. Well, so 2020, obviously we know what happened there, but it changed a lot of the thinking of the world, right? So a lot of folks went to an either full remote or a hybrid type system. I think we can all agree, we're all in this world now, we can agree that a lot of folks have gotten back to the office, back to work, but we can also agree just by looking at how companies are hiring right now, and when we go out to meet with clients, we see less and less people in an office, that things really have changed. So if folks went into an agreement in 2019, let's say, their needs and wants have changed significantly as they approach re-upping that agreement now. And they might need to consider rescaling or right-sizing their managed print service solution. And how do you go about analyzing that and looking at that? Because you're talking about providing a solution for somebody in the present, but because it's a 5-year agreement, in that range, there's a lot of things that can modify and change. So it's like you want to put them in an agreement that is right for the present, but you've got to put an eye towards the future of whether or not they might be scaling and growing. Are they downsizing? Are they adding multiple locations? Are they in a hybrid and they've come to the realization they should go full remote now? Like, how do you get through that line of questioning to really understand that? And is that maybe our benefit that other folks aren't asking those questions and they're just putting somebody into a cookie cutter approach at this X amount of dollars, and it satisfies them, but it doesn't necessarily satisfy the partner?
Yeah, way to steal my answers, John Morris.
That's it. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but you're 100%. That's it. That's it. What differentiates us from other vendors is the fact that when we say consultative selling, we're not just saying it to say it as a buzzword. We live that. We breathe that. I am not going to go into your organization and look at what you have in place, copy, paste just with our equipment and say, here you go, here's our stuff.
Yeah, you're not just flipping out the machinery.
What does that do for you? Absolutely nothing. That has nothing. And that's the whole apples to apples thing that makes my eye twitch. When someone goes, I want to see an apples to apples comparison. Yes, I get it. I get the baseline, cost you want to see. But at the end of the day, if those apples are rotten, why?
Yeah, why would we compare it to something that isn't really working for you?
For the love of God, please, people, stop doing
that. That's a tough thing, though, because the person that you're talking to made the decision to go with the other organization under that agreement. So that's an interesting balancing act, because by saying, hey, look, you didn't get the service that you want, you almost kind of are saying, hey, look, you made a bad decision. So there's like a balance. That's a tough thing. Like, how do you navigate that? Because they had the best intentions. These are very smart people. These directors of IT and IT managers and CIOs, these are very smart people. And I'm not talking about just technology-wise. Like, these are extremely intelligent people, which does make it difficult to just go in and give like a basic presentation and think they're just going to roll over and say yes, right?
Right.
You really have to be able to show true value and benefit in order to influence or persuade them to make some sort of a change. Otherwise, why would they make a change? But often that change is because they've recognized the decision they made the first time wasn't the right decision. So how do you balance that to get them to feel comfortable and confident enough that maybe it wasn't their fault, but they deserve better.
Right. So two different pathways, right? One, we do a full analysis. So we are going in and we're walking around the facility. We're noting where these devices are located, who's using them, why, what is the end goal? We're having conversations about their current environment, what's been working, what's not been working. We talk about what type of things have changed in their business. I'm not strictly talking about, printing and scanning, like in general, your business as a whole, what has changed, because everything, is connected. So what changes in one department where maybe they don't do any printing may still affect that environment, right? So on the, the other pathway, it's not necessarily their fault. The only time I would ever say it would be their fault directly is if they decided that they didn't want to look at the analysis, they didn't want to see anything, and they just said, yeah, sure, looks good, and then that was it. Then you didn't care. So the outcome is the outcome. But
I got to tell you, like, we have run into some of those calls where folks are like, look,
just a few.
Look, and what you could hear is not like a person who was like had malice, right? But what you hear is typically somebody who is frustrated in the role because maybe they've been told like, hey, look, you don't have a budget, so like quit asking.
Right.
So they've almost kind of like given up, like, hey, I've gone several times to say, hey, here's a better solution, and I keep getting stiff-armed by the powers that be. So now when you call, I'm just going to stiff-arm you because I know I can't even get to the next level. Like, I'd love to look at your analysis, but I keep getting stiff-armed. How do you work through that? Because a lot of the times that is the true case. Like, these are not people who are like not trying to benefit the business, but every time they've tried to benefit the business and say, hey, look, we need to make this modification or change, I need some budget to do it. It's been like, look, it's just printers and copiers. Just do it at the cheapest. Just get it done.
Right.
And we don't care about that. We had one person we called out to and said something to the effect of like, I care more about the fly that hit my windshield going 55 miles per hour than I do about copiers and printers right now. I think that if they saw a $200 a month savings with better technology and service that was elite, they probably would change that philosophy, but it's tough for them to believe that when you just show them a spreadsheet with a side-by-side.
Right, and that's not going to cut it. So the people that they're bringing that to who are stiff-arming them, right, they're doing that for a reason. They're not seeing the value. They don't see the value. It doesn't make sense to them. So then that brings us back to what does matter to them. What projects are they focused on this year, next year? What are those goals? Because if we tie, managed print services or managed, technology services as a whole back to what those goals are, well, then now it is something that's on the forefront of their mind. We talk about budget. We don't have the budget to look at this. Okay, if I'm lowering your costs, I'm not asking you to increase your budget.
Yeah, it ties right in.
Yeah, I'm. If anything,
Do you think it's a once bitten, twice shy kind of a thing? Is there a strong chance that it's that? Like they've had the presentation, the pitch from other brands that have promised the world, and it didn't happen, and they went with they flipped, let's say, 3 different times. And then they're on to it. They're like, you guys are just all the same, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how do you break through that and be the differentiator of being lumped in like that?
Yeah, and I would say we kind of get lumped in 2 different areas. One would be what you just described, and then the other would be their expectations are very, very low, but they don't know any better because they haven't seen a company that works on that higher level. So in either case, it's about understanding what their thought process is, what their perception is, and then explaining to them what we do, differentiating ourselves. So for example, we are customer-centric. We don't say that just to say that. We are that. Our service team is everything. Yeah. Today, and I say this honestly in meetings all the time. It's funny. technology at this point in time in 2024, especially talking like copiers and printers, right? Every single manufacturer should, for the most part, be decent. The hardware should work.
Yeah.
There's no, I can never sit here and say like there's a particular manufacturer out there who's just like, oh, it's terrible, you should never work with them. I mean, could I say that? Sure, but what's the point,
There also isn't a Ferrari. Version, right? I mean, like, is somebody going to buy a Ferrari version for their office, right?
And it goes back to the needs, and then that goes back to the rep. Are we doing our jobs correctly? You can have the best equipment in the world, but if it's not the right device with the right features for what you're trying to accomplish, it can still result in nothing but headaches. It can result in a bunch of service calls, jams. It can result in you using, toner faster than you expect, so you're going through it constantly, and that's like there's just all these little things that
again, I call them they're ticky tack, but they add up.
They add up and they're annoying.
They're annoying.
That's why you have office space.
That's probably why when you call folks, when you reach out to folks, they're kind of in an annoyed position.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to talk about copiers. I do not want to talk about copiers. I don't. I talk about your business.
Yeah, solutions. Yeah.
What are you trying to, honestly, technology-wise, what are you trying to accomplish? What is going on in your day-to-day? What initiatives are you looking at? Are you trying to take a process that's 10 steps and make it 2 steps? Do you have, some sort of software migration going on? I mean, we work hand in hand with IT constantly because of that. There's this huge overlap because of the software and application side of things. So there's just no situation where I'm going to be walking in and, sitting down with the CIO and being like, oh, do you need 4 drawers? Do you need to print on 11 by 17? Like,
no features.
Oh my God. I'm falling asleep just listening to that.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So yeah, I mean, it's having higher level conversations. It's being creative. It's understanding, what you have your obvious pain, right? But then you have the actual cause. What's behind that? You feel this way, but why?
Yeah.
When you talk about someone being burned before and then getting lumped in with everybody else, it's showing people that there's a different way of doing business, and that used car salesman vibe that people sometimes will associate, with
I think they're justified in having it because
100%.
I've said this oftentimes, that sometimes the biggest advantage that a brand can have is who their competition is and how their competition operates. And if you can look at the pain or the challenges that buyers of your products and services and the industry's products and services have towards the industry, and you could make that your leading emphasis, like this is how we are so unique and different. Your competition can ultimately become your biggest strength, because oftentimes when we reach out to clients, the posture that they have isn't coming from us. It's coming from their current solution, or maybe even the solution before that they still have a bad taste in their mouth about.
Yeah, and I would add to that and say the idea that, I don't want to talk about copiers and printers because it's not important, right? It's not, I have so many other projects going on. There's so many other things that just take precedence over this. And I get it because that's the perception, right? But that's not your specialty. It's my specialty.
Yeah.
So how do you know what I could do for you?
And you can use the savings to fund the projects that you do want to focus on.
All day. Not to mention add functionality that could help you accomplish, some of those other goals you have.
Yeah.
We integrate with your existing environment. We put things in place that will integrate to those future solutions. It's nothing in technology and business today is like on an island by itself. Everything overlaps. So you need to be aware of that overlap. When I get bored, I shouldn't say bored because I'm never bored, but when I have time or I just need a break from, the day-to-day grind, I'll look up, what do CIOs care about in 2025? What are the, upcoming challenges for, technology directors over the next 5 years? I do that, for different job roles. I do that for specific industries. And it's always relating to technology as a whole because I want to know what is keeping people up at night.
Yeah.
Because that helps me better do my job. there's no like today is just a different sales world. We are not just throwing darts out there hoping things will stick. It's very pointed. It's intentional.
Yeah. Well, as we've talked about, I think on 2 or 3 of the previous episodes, and we talk about it in our social selling training, right now, the consumers, ourselves included, want a humanless buying process for 86% of that process. We really don't want to engage with a human until we are ready to have some questions answered. We need, to maybe kind of map out our needs and wants, and we are starting to look at pricing and all those things. Leading up to that, we want to do research, and we want to discover and understand what other people are saying about your brand. What are you saying about your brand? What does your culture look like? Who's steering the ship? What do you stand for? What's your core values? What are your principles? Those are the things that we as consumers want. So other consumers are the same exact way. I always use the analogy if I was going to the mall to buy a suit, let's say for a wedding, natural instinct, and I never go to the mall. So if I'm going to the mall, let's be honest, I'm going to buy something. I'm not going to walk around the mall.
You're not a mall rat?
No, I'm going to the driving range if I have spare time. I'm not going to a mall. But if I do go to the mall, I'm going with intention to buy something. Knowing that, I walk into the store to buy a suit, and the fine person who's working there says, "Can I help you find something?" And I go, No, I'm just looking. And that analogy plays in my head over and over and over again when I think of any consumer. When you have outreach to them, their natural knee-jerk reaction, it's just human, is to go say, no, I'm not interested. And the reason being is because they've had that pressure put on them to buy something that they didn't want. They've been put in a situation where they made a decision they wished they didn't make, but they were pushed into making that decision. And we're taking a different type of approach. Talk a little bit about how the approach has modified and how you've played a part in kind of redesigning that approach where we're doing outreach and we're communicating with people, but we're really getting to the needs and wants and the want behind the want behind the want, the emotional driver. How are you teaching your team and how are you personally going about doing that?
Yeah, I think having curiosity, right? If I'm going to call somebody, I'm just going to take a minute or so, check out their website. Have they written any articles? Are there any, blog posts? Have they won an award? I'll check out their LinkedIn. What does their job history look like? Get a little feel for what's going on. Because if we have X amount of customers in this specific industry and they're all having similar issues, then it's safe to say that, I could probably bring that up and it has a higher probability of being an issue for you too. So it's talking to people about actual like meaty things. Yeah. It's having conversations and asking questions and getting to know them, and not leading with, this is the product, do you want product, you have product, here's another product.
Yeah.
We want to be a partner. We want to not just understand what your goals are, but your motivations behind what you're doing.
Yeah, interesting.
And that really is what feeds everything else. Because if I understand your motivation, what's driving you, then the rest just follows.
Yeah, interesting point. What's your motivation? What's driving you?
In general?
Yeah, Woo. I mean, what's your motivation? What's driving you?
Lord.
Yeah.
From the business standpoint, I always wanted to progress, from entry-level sales rep, senior level, major level into management. And then as an ultimate test, I think management is the ultimate test, because if you can replicate your success with others, then I feel like you're like, oh, it wasn't a fluke. We all have imposter syndrome, right? We're like, I don't know how I got here, but I got here. So that's kind of what's driving me currently is I really like watching people succeed. I like watching people kind of have that light bulb moment of like, oh my God, these things that you've been talking about, I just experienced it. There's nothing more satisfying than being on a meeting with a rep and you hear them talking and they're saying things that they've heard you say.
Yeah.
And now
that is very gratifying.
You're like, oh,
for sure.
It's here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all grown up.
You were listening. Yeah.
But professionally, that's definitely been a driver. My background is communication sciences and disorders with a minor in psychology.
Yeah. How the hell did you get there?
So the world, life takes you on weird paths, right? I, got out of high school. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life because what 18-year-old knows what they want to do? Couldn't tell you.
What 48-year-old does?
No clue. So I was like, maybe I'll just be a teacher. I had all my classes signed up to go down that track and then had like full panic like a week before the semester started.
Interesting.
I was like, I have no interest in this. This is not what I want to do, Ended up deciding on speech pathology. Love the field. The whole understanding, the rules behind language, understanding disordered speech in terms of how you say things, how you pronounce things, and then also understanding the rules behind language. And it also falls under, the autism spectrum. So that's very much, communication, understanding sarcasm, for example, facial expressions, all of that. Loved it. Got my psych minor to kind of supplement that. And my whole degree was, very much so how people learn, the different learning styles, motivations, positive, negative reinforcement, being able to lesson plan, but then more importantly, being able to track what happens in those lessons and amass data and then be able to make educated-based decisions based off of that data, which hilariously I use constantly. That same mentality of educated-based practice.
I was just going to ask you that,
is what I do.
You know how many people have graduated with a degree in something and in no way, shape, or form are using it?
Yeah.
What's interesting is that you're not in the field, but what you learned is so valuable to what it is that you're doing now. Talk a little bit about how you're using that. Like, how does that benefit you to benefit others?
For me, it's about proving to whoever I'm meeting with that my solution is the best way to go. I don't have to just say it and you take my word for it. We're way past that. Everything is tracked now. Everything is data and analytics. And if you're not tracking everything, then
you can't just say things. You can't just say things anymore. Like hyperbole used to be a huge thing in sales.
Yes.
Like 20 years ago.
The trust me brother
I remember
method.
coming up as somebody in sales and like the veterans were like, just say this. And I'm like, well, are you sure we could do that? Like, they'll forget, don't worry. And then it just kind of like withered off, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can't do that anymore. Like there is no hyperbole anymore. Good Lord, there might be hyperbole in our politics these days, but holy cow. But in sales and in business branding, there isn't hyperbole. It's so easy to fact check a business and fact check the salespeople and to figure out how many Google stars they have and the ratings and what people are saying online about them. And you can't just, say you're going to do one thing and not do it. So when you say prove it, what that means to me is that you're making a brand promise that you can stand behind and you can push with ultra confidence. What 100%. Are those?
So, we have same-day service. We stay within 4 hours. Our resolution time across our entire customer base is 2 hours and 18 minutes.
That's crazy.
And
we cover Chicagoland area, over the border in Wisconsin, and down into Indiana, like the northwest top corner of Indiana, right?
Correct.
I mean, even to South Bend, do we go that far? I don't know if we go that far, but...
Maybe not quite that far,
but northwest Indiana, and I guess that would be southeast Wisconsin, and then the Chicagoland area. So to have a 2 hour and 18 minute resolution, and that's like from when somebody calls in to our help desk or our customer service, and essentially it puts a ticket in, says, "Hey, look, we've got this issue." within 2 hours and 18 minutes, not only are we there, but we've resolved it. That's the average, 2 hours and 18 minutes. I mean, that's because why is that a value? Well, it's a value because we hear often the reason that people are going with us for somebody else is they waited 48 hours for resolution. And that time that their machines were down caused such infighting and management problems and efficiency problems and time problems, which all equate to money problems. And when we're able to stand behind that and say that, but not only that, but do it, then that's a big differentiator.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, think about in manufacturing, for example, they have a job traveler, which is essentially like station to station as something is being manufactured. There is different parts of this packet, and it's like a ticket, and it's tracking each station and the progress of that job.
Yeah.
And then every station they're adding information to it, right? And at the end, it's finished. It goes on to the next part of its journey, whatever. If your devices aren't working properly, then that doesn't move the way it should.
So it stops the conveyor belt process.
Stops production.
Yeah.
It can stop production. And time literally is money in that case. I mean, I've had conversations with people where they say, I go, oh, tell me about your current, company. What is the service currently like? And they're like, oh, it's great. It's good. It's good. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean to you? Like, great. That can mean a lot to different things to different people. And they'll be like, oh, when I call, the service people will come, within a week or so. And I'm thinking in my head, a week. And I'm like, okay, well,
So what do they do? Just send people home?
I don't know what they do, to be honest.
They have backup machines? Like, what? How does that work?
This is where people will be like, well, it's cool because I went out and I bought this desktop to hold us over. And I'm like, okay, it costs 3 times to, more, 10 times more to print on a desktop than on some of these, larger devices. So not only are they now spending money on hardware and supplies for devices that they shouldn't have to have, period.
Yeah.
But they're justifying it in their heads, saying like, my company dropped the ball. This vendor dropped the ball, caused me, and I have to do all this, but it's fine because I
wish people would make excuses for me like that.
Right? Like, in what world, like for your organization, for your company, what do you expect from yourselves? They
would never be allowed to that grace by their customers.
No, or they think that that's okay, that's the standard, because then you get the people that are like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, like that vibe. Another one where my eye will start twitching, because if you haven't seen anything in 10 years.
IT decision makers, this might sting. Frustrated with IT issues, security threats, and the stress of your technology infrastructure? Your technology should blend seamlessly with your business objectives. Technology infrastructure management with limited resources can be exhausting and counterproductive. Do you have an MSP but still have problems and technical hiccups? GSD's advisement, proactive maintenance, cutting-edge cybersecurity, cloud solutions, data backup, and local 24/7 help desk can change the game. Your technology should outpace your business operations to allow for growth, and proactive strategies should prevent issues before they arise. Get back your time and your money with GSD. Drive business forward. Leave the technology to GSD. GSDnow.com. Yeah, I mean, you come to believe that that's as good as it gets.
You have no idea. And then they're telling me that, waiting 2 days for toner is good. Excuse me, good. We're talking
Well,
overnight.
first off, there should be no wait. There should be no wait because there should be technology put on the machine, right? That is set to when you're at 30% or you're at 20%, whatever number you want it set to, that it automatically is sent. The toner's already in the mail once it hits that 20% number, right?
That threshold.
So really, there shouldn't have to be we're out. Let's go order some. There should be a machine being sent information that information is then sent to TTSG, and TTSG is then putting toner in the mail. And by the time it's at 10%, you've already got it. So it never runs out.
Twice this year, I've heard stories, just meeting with people, talking with them, where they're telling me that their vendor directed them to go and source their own, some of those supplies themselves because they weren't able to get it in time.
But they're not going to buy in bulk. So isn't that going to be like retail pricing?
Yes. So then they told me that they went on, Amazon or, another company that just sells hardware, supplies, whatever. And they, had to buy their own supplies. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's strange. That's a terrible situation, but they reimburse you for that, right? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you're paying right now the service fee that encompasses, those supplies. And you're telling me that you're having to go out and not only purchase them, but, source them on your own while you're waiting for, I just don't, it's insanity. And I'm like, okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about TTSG and, what our standard of service is. Let me just explain what we do, because I don't need to say, ooh, that's bad. All I need to do is explain.
Yeah, just the difference.
Yeah, the level that you should expect.
They're not making that decision because they're like, want a bad solution or they're not intelligent people. But you only know what you know, and until you know something new, you remain knowing what you know. So what you're essentially saying is, look, like it's reasonable that you're accepting this service, because that is the best. That's as good as it gets as it relates to what you've seen.
Right. The bar
until
is
low. So until you see something that is validated by thousands of other companies to be the case, until you see something different, you're going to accept that. So really, I guess what I'm hearing, Lauren, is the only thing that you're asking a decision maker to do is to not look at apples to apples, but look at oranges to apples.
Right.
And in this analogy, I'm saying that oranges taste better than apples.
Obviously.
Well, we can make that argument all you want, but you're not going to know until you take a look at a different way. And if in the marketplace you never see a different way, it just seems like a pipe dream and an analogy and unicorns, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Like you can't even believe it until it actually is presented to you, and then it really becomes solidified within 2 months or 3 months of the engagement, when it starts to really happen.
Oh yeah,
like it's happening, boom. Because initially the machines go in, they get plugged in, everything's going to work out. You're in the honeymoon phase, everything's fine. It's not until like 60, 90 days where maybe there's a copier that gets jammed or toner starts to run out or whatever, maybe. But that's when you start to see the service and you start to see the difference.
Oh yeah, I mean it's as easy as, I've had people email me just thanking me and being like, your service team is amazing. They're shocked that they can call and talk to a human being.
Yeah.
They like the fact that our service team, they're going to see, the same people depending on, where they're located geographically. They get to know them as human beings. They talk about our service techs by name. They're not like, oh, your service guy. They say Phil. They say Kevin. Mm-hmm. They say Jake. And I get emails regularly about just how helpful they've been, how great they are. I can say I'm spoiled at TTSG because I don't know what it's like to work for a company where after you finish the solution, you finalize the paperwork, you have to involve yourself in the operations and delivery and install process because you can't trust that it's going to get done. I never had to do that. It's
a baton passing.
It's gone. Here's the baton, and they take it and they run with it and they do a great job, and I don't ever have to question it.
Yeah, I can't imagine beautiful. If you were in the 400 meter relay, right? And, each person is supposed to run their 100 meters. But you ran 80 meters and decided just to take the baton and pass it as hard as you can the other 20 meters, and it hits off the back of my head, and then it bounces on the track, and I got to run over and pick it up, and then I got to catch up, and then I only run 60 meters because I'm exhausted because I had to chase the thing around, and then by the time I pass it off, I mean, you're barely going to get to the finish line. There's no chance you win the race. So a lot of times when there's that operational challenge within an organization, that becomes reflective in the outcome for the customer.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that you're saying, hey, look, from the sales perspective, what's really important to me is once I line up the partnership and pass it over to service, I've run my 100 meters. I hand it off smoothly. They take it. They run their 100 meters. They're off and going. It means that the outcome for the partner is going to be smooth and easy because this transition from sales to service was smooth and easy.
Absolutely. I mean, and everything goes back to just having conversations and understanding what people expect, what their concerns are, what the challenges are, what their motivations are. All of those things from the very start of the sales process all the way through, the deal is closed and now we're looking at the installation and onboarding process. I mean, if all those things are done correctly, then we have everything we need. And there is no, one-stop shop, like everything is the same cookie cutter solution. Every single situation is just a little bit different. There's similarities all around, but there's subtle nuances, there's subtle differences. And our ability to address those specific needs per customer is another game changer. Because when you look at our competition, when you're talking about like the huge companies, the billion-dollar companies out there, maybe pricing is their thing. They're so huge they can just give away hardware and call it a day, right? That's great for them. So happy for you. But they cannot navigate quickly. And what I mean by that is, internally...
They're a battleship. We're a speedboat.
If there's a problem with their process that's causing, the end user to have a bad experience...
It could take years.
Yeah, they can't address it. They can't change it.
They can address it, but it could take years to modify it and implement it and get it completely to go across the country or internationally. Whereas, obviously we aspire to be a bigger company. We want growth, but we're big enough to offer all of the elite services and products that somebody would need in order to operate their business, whether they're a small business or a big business.
Oh, yeah.
But we're small enough to care. We're small enough to be agile. We're small enough to customize. We're small enough to be innovative and to be able to adjust on a dime.
Yeah,
right?
and even as we grow, yes, there will be challenges and growing pains, which I'm looking forward to. Good problems to have, right?
Yeah, right.
But that customer-centric approach is so ingrained in our company culture that even as we grow, it'll be growth with that still being our beating heart.
Yeah. Your customers should not be a victim of your growth.
No.
Right?
They
should
care.
be a beneficiary of your growth because you now have more resources to provide even better service. You know what's an amazing differentiator for a business? And I like to think that we can say this, right? An amazing differentiator for a business is to be able to say the difference is how we run our business, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the more efficient an organization is, the stronger likelihood that they create efficiency for other organizations because they understand it and they appreciate it enough to master it within their own brand. So they understand how important it could be to another brand. And then when that becomes the differentiator that they're offering out to the marketplace, that really becomes the problem solver. So when we are talking to directors of IT and CIOs and CTOs and IT managers and all these folks, their last focus, the last thing that they really want to focus on, right, is the copiers and printers and those types of things. But it's required, it's needed. You have to have it.
Right.
But they want to focus more on the big picture, the innovation, protecting the organization, cybersecurity and confidential documents and all those different things that they need to do in order to really make the business thrive. So talk a little bit about the appreciation or maybe a brand story of some feedback of how you were able to take a director of IT or one of those decision makers and provide a solution where it took all that ticky-tack stuff off of their plate, right, and freed them up so they could focus on big picture. And maybe they gave you some feedback like, oh my gosh, I have an extra so many hours in my week to do these things.
I would say one of my favorite things to look at and analyze is in terms of process improvement. So when we talk about how documents move through an organization, how they are retrieved, stored, the path, a a lot of times different organizations are on some level of trying to make that process more efficient. A lot of times the trend is going paperless. I say quote unquote because it's not going 100%.
The trend isn't actually showing the paper is down. Paper's actually up.
Yeah, but in general, I mean, there are improvements to make. And so the conversation in that case is that copiers and all the different printing devices are a tool to help with that process. So I have gone in, I actually have to document that process on how those documents are being moved through the organization, who needs to see them, is there a timeline, how long can they have this document before it's supposed to go on to its next stage, does someone need to sign off on it, does it have to get printed and highlighted? There's all these different things that go into the day-to-day that we do automatically and don't think about. But when you are trying to improve a process, you need to first map the process. Mapping the process is very eye-opening to everybody. That alone, not even getting to the solution part, just mapping someone's current process is so satisfying because you can really start to hone in on the things that need to change.
A faster way to get home.
Yes. And the fact that we do the heavy lifting, we come in, we're putting in all of this work. We're doing this analysis, we're getting an up-to-date asset list. We're putting together, this map per se. And there's no cost to this. This is just how we do business. So the worst case scenario is you get all this information that can help you in so many ways for free. And if we can't, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. You just got this information and,
shop it.
Good luck to you.
Shop it out and see if somebody's got something better.
But, at
least take a look.
But for me, I'm like, challenge accepted. I'm going to find a way to help you because that's what I like to do.
I said you were competitive.
Yeah, it is. I do take things as a challenge, really. It's more like a fun puzzle to me. I feel almost like a detective. I like going through all this. I like seeing the patterns.
Yeah.
If I would have told myself this, years ago, I would have just probably hysterically laughed because I was not that.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was going through college for my degree, I was not that. And then I was a bartender for 8 years. I mean, I definitely wasn't using it then. So I don't know how I went that long before figuring this out about myself, but man, turns out I like uncovering the crazy. I like the chaos.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about life is that self-discovery, and I think every day you get a chance to kind of learn a new thing about yourself, and you have more history to kind of refer back to and go, okay, this is what drives me, this is what motivates me, this is what helps me get shit done, right? Speaking of that, that's the premise of the show. So I want to talk to you real quick before we wrap up. Give me 2 or 3 real hot buttons or hacks of how you personally get more shit done.
Ooh, okay. So one, I was taught by our fearless leader, Tim Ward, to block your calendar. And that was ingrained in me. So having a plan every day, every week, and then working that plan is it's critical. It's critical to just getting everything you need to get done in a day. Time management is huge. And then other than that, it's having self-awareness. Sales, and I feel like you would agree with this, sales will humble you so quickly.
By the minute.
And when you get humbled, you're gonna
you have 2 options.
Yeah, you're gonna say, okay, I recognize that I had some shortcomings here. Yeah. I recognize I swallowed the pill. Time to make a change. Or you're gonna lie to yourself and continue to do it until you either burn yourself out and sales isn't for you, or
you run into enough brick walls that you
get mad,
you get mush,
and it flips.
Yeah.
So that self-awareness, I think it takes a little bit of courage to dive into the dark part of your psyche and say, I thought that I was doing great. I thought this was the way to go. Personally, I'm a stubborn person, so it really takes learning the hard way a lot of times, unfortunately, for it to get to me. But when it does, I don't want to repeat the same mistake again. So yeah, self-awareness. And if I wanted to sprinkle a little bit more on that and add a third thing, just because I'm going to be an overachiever.
Please do. Yeah.
I would say being able to have patience for the long-term payoffs and just come in and embrace the grind.
Yeah.
Embrace the grind, because I'm sorry if anybody thinks, they watched Wolf of Wall Street, they think they can just...
Well, if they watch Wolf of Wall Street, then they know the grind, because those folks were in there early pounding the phone, even though what they were doing was not so good. But the reality is that, everybody wants abs, right? You don't get abs by doing one sit-up, right? You don't get abs because you just kind of like think it and feel it and believe it. Like, the whole idea of think something into existence is if you think about it enough times, it's going to cause you to take the actions to make the outcome happen. It's not the thinking about it that gets the outcome. It's the thinking about it that causes you to consciously and subconsciously take the actions that eventually create the abs, right?
Yes.
Whether it be financial abs or actual physical abs. So when we're talking about sales and grind, you're talking about a desired outcome that you have to continuously chip away at, because you can't just think about the outcome and it just shows up. It's a constant chipping away, which means you have to be ultra active. And that activity can be intentional. It doesn't have to be throwing shit against the wall, as we've talked about.
It needs to be intentional.
It needs to be intentional, but it also needs to be a lot of it.
Yes.
So I hear this all the time. There's like this conversation happening on LinkedIn. Some people are like, oh, screw the grind. You don't have to grind. And then you got other people who are like, it's all about being intentional. It's both, people.
Yes.
You have to do both. Like, it's always about like the hot clip. Let me give you the hot clip. The hot clip is screw the intention. You got to grind. No. And then the other way around, I think might be worse. These are people who are saying just be intentional, are people who were grinders their whole life, got to a level of success, and now it just comes easier because it's innate now. So they just go, well, just be intentional. You don't have to grind anymore.
Yeah, just
but
do
what
it.
about the 20 years of grind that you had in order to get to the ability to recognize you need intention?
Yes.
So it's both. You have to do both. And by the way, if you're intentional and you grind, you benefit more people. You benefit more customers.
Not to mention, there's so many different avenues in today's world to connect with other individuals in business. You got LinkedIn, you got cell phones, you got texting, you got phone calls.
Networking is back.
Networking. I mean, there's so many things you can be doing, and you don't know what the person prefers that you're trying to meet with. What are they, a phone person? Are they not a phone person? I would say in the tech space, people don't want to talk on the phone. Are there people that love to? Sure. But most people are like what you were saying earlier. They're like, I don't want to talk to a person, but they might email you right away. So if you're reaching out to someone, you should really be reaching out to him. I call it the trifecta. You got the phone,
multiple ways.
You got the email, you got the LinkedIn.
Because you don't know which one they like the most or which one they're comfortable with. There's some people who won't answer a phone call because they get a nervous reaction or like a chemical reaction when the phone rings.
That might be
and
me.
they actually don't want to be on the phone. Some people, don't like to email because they don't want to read 7 paragraphs that you sent them. By the way, guys, if you're going to send an email, try and keep it under 60 words. That has the strongest likelihood of engagement.
And sound
I
like
get
a
some
person.
I get some of these emails that are like 5 paragraphs. I'm sorry, I don't have time to read your 5-paragraph email.
Well,
anyways,
actually, though, on that note, emails and cold calls. So, because of what I do here, I'm a nicer individual when I get telemarketers calling me for whatever reason. I'll actually answer.
Do you do you give them advice like, hey, if your opening was better, like if you established a little bit of commonality and credibility, I probably would have been. You do that.
Have you heard of spin?
Yeah, exactly. You do that.
I have said. I'll kind of like pause for a minute and then I'll be like, oh, I thought this was an automated call. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. But I mean, that's not even.
When they have the auto dialer and you say hello and there's a pause and then you got to say hello the second time and then they're like, oh, hey. Yeah, it's like, oh, so in a call center lately?
Well, and that's the difference.
Fine.
You have to be a human being. No one wants to talk to the monotone.
Yeah.
We can tell when you've been calling saying the same thing all day, every day.
Treat me like a number, I'll treat you like a number. I mean, that's the thing, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you just, intentional. I don't know. I've always been a curious cat.
Yeah.
So I want to know. What do you care about? Why do you care about it?
Yeah.
What's the plan? And I want to adjust what I'm doing. How does what I sell, how does what I do fit? Where's the commonality? Where is it? It's like a scavenger hunt. I'm a detective. You got to make it fun. Otherwise, you're beating your head against a wall.
Yeah. Okay, so Lauren, obviously we're getting shit done here, and we've made this a little bit of a selfish brand type of a podcast, but I think it's important. We've been putting out podcasts where it's really about the guest, and in this case, it's really about the guest. My guest today happens to be the sales manager at TTSG. So therefore, yes, we are going to absolutely talk a lot about managed print services and what is it we do. Why should somebody engage with our team? Why should folks hire us?
If they would like to see if there are any areas that can be improved, if they want to maybe get some more room in their budget to accomplish other goals, if there are any changes in the organization, period, full stop, change, period, that is when you should be evaluating your technology, point blank. I don't care if there's a contract, it's irrelevant. Honestly, because either we can help you now and do a buyout of the contract, or on the IT side, we can create a technology roadmap to get you from point A to point B. But it doesn't matter. We need to start the conversation, because whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, we can't help you if we don't have an introductory convo. So just be open to talking with us. Talk to us, because the way we're going to approach the situation is going to be vastly different than the majority of other companies out there who really will. You might as well just give them a shopping list and say, here's what I want. And at that point, who's doing what? Because we're talking about managed services, managed being the key, not a buzzword, an actual key action.
Yeah.
Okay. A critical part of management, right?
Action, yes.
Yeah. So allow us to do so. And just have an open mind, see what's out there. Don't assume that you understand everything about our industry, because it seems really simplistic when you go, oh, copiers and printers. Like, I get it, I really get it, but I'm telling you, there's deeper levels. And again, because we are a full technology services provider, TTSG, we also have GSD Technologies, 2020 Design. We really can be
all in one, man.
All in one. So let's see what's going on. Let's leave the
maybe
door
the timing's not right for one, but it is for another.
Right.
Maybe the timing's right for two, and the other one is down the line. But it's one call, multiple solutions, so it's worthwhile. If you want to get a hold of Lauren, it's LKLAUS@ttsg.com. Or you could just go to ttsg.com and check us out, and then reach out and call the number, and we'll get you in touch with Lauren. Or you could send us a DM on LinkedIn. We're both all over LinkedIn. Or you could send a smoke signal, or maybe like the Batman light in the sky, and we'll just show up at your doorstep, and we'll be ready to talk to you about where you want to go in your business, not about products. We want to talk to you about where you want to go in your business. We will figure out together whether or not we're the right solution for that. And guess what? Here's the cool part. If we're not, we'll tell you we're not the right solution, and we'll point you in the right direction. If we are, it still doesn't mean you have to hire us, but we're going to give you all the advisement and the knowledge and expertise that we have, so you can make the most informed decision. You deserve it. And by the way, Lauren, I want to remind you, you got shit done. Can your business handle 15% growth? If yes, you have to engage with 2020 Design. They fuse data and creativity to stop the scroll, break through the noise, and grab the attention of your future customers. 2020 Design will create competitive, click-worthy campaigns, design and build custom websites, spark your social media presence, and structure email campaigns that get right to your audience, the decision maker. Let's boost attention and awareness, which allows you to convert more sales. Check them out at 2020design.com. That's the number 20, TWENTY design.com.